Good morning, and afternoon, and evening to everybody. Just give people a few more minutes before we kick this off.
Is my mic good?
It is. I can hear you. I can't hear Cody though.
Cool.
Although Cody's saying maybe there's something wrong on my end, but can everyone hear me? I feel like is there an okay? I think it just might be you, Cody. But as long as the recording's working, that's all that matters. Difficulties. Someone. Oh, there you go. There we go. Someone really needs to build a really good solution to this problem. That's all I can say.
It was just the simple IT solution of me leaving the room and coming back in. That solves
Nice.
all the problems.
Beautiful. Well, let's get this started then. We're nearly 5 minutes in, so probably ample time for people to get in.
Oh yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for coming. Nice to see a good turnout, and thank you to everyone that's going to be watching the recording. As you guys are aware, we've been putting together this town hall. We got a few different items on the agenda to get through. Primarily, keeping it pretty high level, but we're going to run through what is going to be the vision going forward, what is going to be the market focus. We're going to touch a little bit upon Voy ID, which many of you might already know about, and we're going to talk about some of the roadmaps that are coming up. But ultimately, we decided to have this call because we've now successfully launched a community built, run, and owned L1 onto mainnet and have listed, but it's time to look ahead and see where do we as a community want to take Voy, essentially. So I'll hand this over to, well, Chris has just dropped. That's perfect timing. Well, I will not hand it over to Chris, who's going to run through the vision, or I see him in the audience, so he'll probably pop back up. And then I will take back over and run us through quite a few different ecosystem updates. But now you're back, Chris. We can jump straight into the vision. Can't hear you. Technology is failing us. It's yeah, it's probably configuring of the input device, right? That old chestnut. Well, we'll give him a few minutes to configure his environment. But in the meantime, one of the important things to remember is, we're coming here, we have a proposed plan of what we think would be a great idea for Voy and as Block Authority. But it's really important to know that this is a great opportunity for people to provide their own thoughts, opinions, and feedback. Don't take what we're saying as gospel. If you think you have a better idea, go for it. We want to hear from you. We want to basically collate as much information from the community as possible, so we can make an informed decision going forward. And it's something that everybody is going to be working towards. But it's worth noting that later, you there, Chris? We can hear you now.
It's push to talk. Figure that out.
There it was. That was the issue. There we go. All right. Well, I will hand back over to Chris, and he'll run through the vision, and I'll give us some more updates.
Well, hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining today. I really appreciate seeing you all. Like Benny said, it's a great turnout. And I'm excited, mainly because of how well Voy has gone so far. And exciting to where it's actually going to be going. So the main thing here is that we started Voy as a community-ran community chain, and it is run by the community. The council members, many in the actual crowd right now, are taking your proposals, deciding on what to do with the tokens and distributing them. We have several community members that aren't part of the council that are making huge projects out in the actual ecosystem, generating their own community. Haroof, which I don't know if is in the crowd or not, is one of them to actually call out. Bolgenmeister really bringing in the geckos, and Voy is really coming alive, and that's amazing. I will actually declare that Voy has been successful at launching and to mainnet a community-ran, community-first chain that didn't fuck up its economics. It's huge. Not only that, but throughout this entire process, the amount of tokens that were given out through the process were actually pretty limited. And so this means that the future is bright. The future has a lot of potential with what the actual tokens can do. But one of the things that I think that Voy is missing, or we think that the actual Voy is missing, is that it's missing that it's missing that focus. It's what is Voy? And yes, we are the community chain, but what is going to be built on top of Voy? And I believe it's time for Voy to start having its own identity. What is the Voy the chain of? Yes, what it should be. Voy is the community chain of something. And one of the things that we've done at Block Authority, which I don't know if many of you know out there, Block Authority is the entity that houses the core team, which is pretty much just another community member, just like you guys. But we've done a lot of research into potential industries that have a lot of potential, that have a lot of opportunity, and that blockchain can really excel at. And it's important that Voy establishes the next identity, the next step. And this is what we're going to talk about today, what our beliefs that it could be, but we're not the controllers of the chain. We are just a member of Voy, just like you guys, that want to see Voy be extremely successful, and would love to actually hear your input, your thoughts on the communities that have lots of opportunity and where you think that Voy can be successful as well. But from here on out, I'll pass this over to Benny to kind of talk about the industry that we think has tons of opportunity. Benny?
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Chris. So yeah, I'll just dive straight into it. Ultimately, as Chris said, this is really going to come down to what Block Authority is believing that it should focus on. This doesn't mean that the ecosystem or the community needs to follow this path, but we would strongly encourage everybody to, just so we are all swimming in the same direction. This is why it is important that you guys are able to provide feedback and commentary on whether you think this is a good idea, whether you might have a different market in mind that might be more effective. But ultimately, Block Authority is going to start serving what is called the multi-unit residential developments market. This is actually a market that falls under commercial real estate. And I want to just take a moment to emphasize that this doesn't mean that Block Authority or the ecosystem is going to be doing all things fractionalization and tokenization of real world assets or property specifically. That is actually a very different industry. What we're talking about is actually serving customer segments within this market. And I will just briefly share a quick little picture which might help articulate what this really means. And one of the reasons why we wanted to pick this high-level market is that these are really real-world communities or physical communities, and it ties in very nicely, obviously, with the focus of what Voy is. And within this market, there's a lot of different segments and subsegments that exist within it. And just for our analysis, we've decided that what would be most the area we'd actually have the most inroads to and the best route to market would be townhouses, apartments, and condos, but specifically developers within these three property types. So these are the people that are actually finding sites, developing them, then actually doing the fundraising to get the building constructed, and then actually obviously having it managed and let out to residents, or perhaps even sell it on to different players in the industry. But it's very important because what we want to do is establish as our beachhead the developers within those property types. And one could say that it's these developers that are actually physical community builders, which again just ties in very nicely with the whole ethos of what Voy is. But another great reason to pick this beachhead is they have deep pockets, they have connections to other forms of investment, but we can actually very easily expand into other neighboring segments as we start basically getting a foothold in the market. So we'll start with the developers, but we could very easily start serving markets such as the management side, the construction side, the investment and ownership side, even down to the residents themselves or the wider community that exists around these developments. And much further down the road, we could then actually start to expand to other higher level market segments such as industrial, commercial, education, or healthcare properties. And what I've really been looking for is how do we define this internally and externally? I think it's very common for a network to say we are the blockchain of X, and the whole purpose of this is really to define what is our X. And in our minds, this actually comes down to managed properties. So what Block Authority is going to be proposing is that Voy becomes the blockchain of managed property. And again, this is just through our market research and analysis. We are also conducting great primary research into these segments and already have a focus group set up, which consists of, I believe, at least 5 different key players within the market across both the US and Canada. And this includes, very sort of specific city-based developers or regional developers or multi-state developers. And I'm actually very impressed with the traction so far within this focus group. I think there's even a family office involved in there and a property management company. But the idea being that through this focus group, we can start to get true validation within those markets on problem solutions and eventually products. And so that is really what we believe the market focus should be. And again, we would love for the entire ecosystem to swim in the same direction, and we can all work together to essentially serve this market and start building applications and platforms on top of Voy that can start serving the customer segments within it. So that's pretty much the download on the market focus. But I would welcome any questions or comments right now before we sort of move on to the next segment, which we'll start talking about some of the key technological developments within the Voy ecosystem that's going to enable us to more effectively serve this market. But I'll give it 10 seconds, and don't feel like you need to ask the question, but as always, do feel free to.
I think one of the reasons why I'm personally attracted to this industry is that it is sneakily complex. There's so many moving parts happening within this industry, and the existing tech is antiquated and it's fitting square pegs in round holes. So there's an industry that has buckets of money because it costs a lot of money to build these huge complexes, and they aren't being helped by traditional technology. And on top of that, a lot of the things that they actually need help with, blockchain excels at. So it is there's room for multiple companies, multiple different projects in the same industry that can use the blockchain to be interoperable with each other, which is really exciting.
Yeah, and I think just to add a little bit more color for people as well. I think, if we talk about potential use cases, one which springs to mind almost immediately, and I'm sure it probably has with others, is, say, access tokens. You look at some kind of managed property, such as maybe a condo or an apartment, there's many different stakeholders that need to be going in and out of the building at any given time, not just the residents, but the management staff, delivery men, maintenance, cleaning, etc. And a great use case is actually just access tokens, a mobile application to be able to gain access to the property, the building, etc. You can basically manage and permission these things. Maybe you have a relative visiting and you're not going to be in the property within a half a day window and you want to be able to remotely give them access to your building and your property. I think these kinds of things play very nicely into the sort of benefits that blockchain can bring. But that's just one very basic, trivial example of a use case. And the point being that we don't know fully exactly what the products will be, but that is because, and that's how things should be, but that's because we have the focus group, and that's really what we're going to be pulling out of them, is here are some actual validated problems, solutions, and products that Block Authority and the wider ecosystem can start building for. And so with that, one of the really important pieces of the puzzle is, we're going to be serving customers that might be not very familiar with blockchain, right? Or they're not exactly crypto natives. And that is where VoiID comes into place. This is a product that we have already built a prototype for. And really what it does is it enables all of the builders in the ecosystem, us included, to basically serve these mainstream users. This is actually going to be picked up by a community member or an entity within the community, which I'm really glad to see, because the more that is built by the community, the stronger the ecosystem in my mind. And it's going to be picked up by Agora Labs, who, if you aren't aware, are the builders and the development collective behind Kibisis and others. So they have already delivered tremendous value to the ecosystem and really exceptional products. And VoiID just feels like the perfect extension of Kibisis. We already manage our sessions with dApps. Us as crypto natives are very familiar with that. But what this would really mean is that mainstream users are able to manage their sort of app permissions from within Kibisis itself to then sort of delegate certain permissions, such as, like transaction signing, asset movement, like all this good stuff, essentially. But the whole point is to just abstract away seed phrases, transactions, and even assets themselves at the end of the day, right? And signing, most importantly. So very excited about that, because this is really going to enable us to start tapping into some of those mainstream markets. And of course, the one that we want to target, right? So with that, we actually kind of come on to two different aspects. I think it's very important to have a roadmap. We've gone through what is going to be our initial market focus as an ecosystem, hopefully, or at least for Block Authority, depending on what the community want to do. But it's very important to not only just have this initial focus on the market, but also a roadmap to kind of guide us on that journey, right? And for me, this really comes down to breaking it into two. There's one which is going to be BA's roadmap, and this is really going to be focused around exclusively building and serving this market. So already, obviously, kind of actually selecting the market, and then getting the focus groups done so we can get the primary research going. But then within the next year, going through the process of in Q1, getting this validation via the focus groups on the problems, the solutions, and the products. Q2, hopefully getting some prototypes developed, which would obviously be more concrete implementations of the products. Then getting all the way to MVPs before finally getting to a full product launch on something that would actually serve real customers within that segment by the end of the year. So I'm really excited about BA's roadmap and what we are going to be doing to basically onboard value and transactions into the ecosystem. But that also means there's the ecosystem side of the roadmap, which is a little bit different because it's more internally focused in some ways, but not necessarily because, there are obviously new products popping up which would start serving that market or other markets for that instance as well. So on the ecosystem side, it really comes down to four high-level categories, right? Events, tokens, like new project tokens getting released, new projects themselves, and also new incentive structures that are going to be in place. And so over the next couple of years, we'll release a more fancy-looking graphic, but I'll just describe it to you for now. is, well, first up, I'll run through the events which are going to be coming up in the next year. There's going to be the NFT games, which we're all very familiar with anyway. Very excited about that. Emphasis very much being more on incentivizing the traders, but also incentivizing new and existing collections to come to Voy and participate, kind of like a traveling delegation, or you know what happens when it's the Olympics. Everybody travels to one place to participate. So I'm excited for that, and I think the council and the community have been doing great work on getting that over the line. But as well as that, the virtual hackathon. I think this is going to be a really, really important hackathon. Yes, we do want to onboard new developers, but at the same time, we actually have an incredible community of developers. You know, I've done a lot of market research with other new L1s. Most of them don't have any community. They don't have any builders. They have nothing other than having given away around 50-60% of their token supply. So it's incredible to see how many developers we do have in the ecosystem, and this virtual hackathon is going to be mainly focused around those guys. But obviously more than happy and welcome for any new developers to come on and start building. But I feel like this hackathon is going to be very much framed towards actually building out critical ecosystem infrastructure. And for me, personally, I would love to see maybe some Oracle-based development going on, the data that needs to be brought on chain. But I think the most important thing is going to be some form of DAO tooling so that we can start bringing more governance on chain. And I think that's going to be really, really important, because then we can actually start putting things to vote to the community, because obviously at the very least, there is going to be the elections of the council, which will require the community members to be needing to vote on who they want to have in the council. So I'm thinking some very bare bones kind of, MVP style developments that'll happen. But if somebody is to build some kind of DAO tooling in some capacity, I think that would be a huge win for the ecosystem. But beyond the hackathon and the games, there's also the token wars. I know that's going through the rounds back and forth just within the governance process, just to fine tune it and make sure it's what everyone wants it to be. But very excited about that too. We come on to the new token launches that are going to be up and coming. I know Kabysis have recently announced they're going to be launching a token. I know Nautilus is going to be launching a token. I know Envoy, one of the new naming services, is going to be launching a token. I believe Nomadex has some plans to launch a token. There's always been on their roadmap and agenda, plus many, many more. I feel within this first year, there's going to be quite a few different token launches. We already have some from NFT collections as well, such as Unit, by the Dorks, and I would love to see even more get announced and actually created within the NFT side of things too. Beyond that, we then have obviously new projects. As I kind of touched upon, I think a lot of the key infrastructure will come out of these virtual hackathons, but we want to see more NFT collections, more tokens being launched, and more projects. I think one that is very, very early stage and preliminary is an application or product called Stubs, named after one of the council members here, and it's going to be actually looking to tackle event ticketing and management, just as a bit of a tangent on the market focus. But I think it's important to explore other markets as well at the same time if the opportunity presents itself. And beyond that, I think there's going to be a slew of different projects that are going to be built up over the coming year, because we're kind of entering into a great bull run for crypto as a whole, and I'm sure everyone here is very excited to see just how far Voy can go within the next 5 years. Beyond that, there's then finally the incentives which are going to be in place for the community, and I think these are really primarily going to span NFTs and DeFi, which you guys know all about those already, so I won't really talk too much about them. But one of the big new ones, which I think is going to be really interesting is the business development side of things. I think with the market that we're selecting and with the focus that we want to have as an ecosystem, it's important to ensure that the community members, ourselves and yourselves, are actually incentivized to do business development. And what this really means is actually facilitating introductions and connections. I think one of the big mistakes that a lot of ecosystems and L1s make is they say, we're going to target XYZ industry, but they don't ever have any inroads or connections or distribution or sale paths into these markets. And I think it's such a critical piece of the puzzle, because if you don't have any way to even get connected to people, you're never going to make any headway at all, which is one of the reasons I'm so bullish off the back of this really prominent focus group that's been established. That was done in breakneck speed and everyone was really excited to join. So I'm very excited about that. But it's important that people in the community are able to tap into their networks and start facilitating connections to the builders and to Block Authority and obviously getting something for it. So I think that's going to be very exciting. And this doesn't need to just be restricted to our market focus as well. You know, if there are adjacent markets or things that people think are interesting, it's always worth a conversation, is what I say. You know, if there is a very distinct problem and need from someone that you know, B2B being better than B2C for the most case, then we want to hear about it. We want to talk to them. We want to at least get some market research at the very least, right? So that's going to be a big piece of the puzzle, is bringing on these business development incentives, which we can start to flesh out now that we've kind of announced the direction that we feel we should be going in. And if everyone as a collective feels this is the right decision, we can all collectively start running full force in this direction. And that kind of rounds off, to be honest, the ecosystem roadmap. And I guess the main updates for the town hall. So I don't know if anyone has any questions or if anyone has anything they want to add, but those are the kind of the main things we wanted to cover today, which is, you know, what is going to be our Northern Star and our vision going forward, how now that we've successfully launched, what market are we going to go after, what technical developments we have on our side to help us target this market, and what are the roadmaps on both sides of the equation going forward as well.
Yeah, I'll just recap like what I just said for people that came in late. The realization is here that Voy launched successfully. It is a super powerful platform that is extremely fast, extremely low cost to actually use. It is decentralized, it is distributed, it is actually ran by the community. So that's the protocol. Now the question is, what do we do next? And us as Block Authority, yes, we were involved very early on, but the truth is the community is running the chain itself, running the protocol. What we want to do is keep working. We want to keep fighting. We want to keep making Voy better. And that is us building the projects on top of the ecosystem, making it more than just a flat, dumb protocol, a living, breathing application that is making people's lives better. And that is how you make Voy the next big thing.
So I see a question from Wilder. I'll just read it aloud. So where do you see the first interaction with the industry that is better on blockchain? In other words, what problem do you see developers have that isn't solved with a private database? So I can answer that. Fundamentally, I think this is one of those situations of putting the cart before the horse. The point is that we don't know exactly what is going to be the use cases and the value adds. We have ideas, certainly, but the whole point is that they're going to be wrong. And this is something that a lot of people get wrong when they build products, is they're like, I got a great idea, I'm going to build this thing, it's going to be awesome, everyone's going to love it, but they never actually go and talk to the customer. And that is the really critical point here, and this is why we have the focus group established. And this is why primary research is so important. We're going to be going to this focus group with our assumptions on what could be great use cases, what could be great products, what problems they might be facing. But we'll never know truly until we actually talk to the customer. And that is the really critical piece of the puzzle, which is they will tell us exactly what their problems are and what they need to be done, and we can start packaging these up and actually creating them. I think there's obviously a slew of different things on the development side that could be done. I think Wilder, as you just touched upon there, fundraising tracking could be quite a key component to that. I think I actually spoke to Bagman merely maybe 40 minutes ago, and he was touching upon asset tracking, whether that's the actual properties or the units, or maybe even some of the equipment within these things, or even some of the infrastructure that is there. You need an auditable maintenance record off a lot of these things, such as the HVAC systems, the plumbing, the sewage systems, etc. And I think these are just some of the really preliminary use cases that we can go in with for the focus group. But if anyone does have any ideas of what they think would be a great use case, more than happy to hear them, because that is just more talking points for us to have with the focus group themselves. But in summary, I think it's a mistake to go in to these conversations with customers and kind of presuppose product solutions and ideas on them. Is much better just to let them talk and listen to them and don't interfere too much, is fundamentally what it comes down to. Otherwise, you end up basically leading the question. Brilliant. Any other questions from people? Any ideas, any feedback, concerns, anything at all? You can come up and speak if you want. You can write it out. It's completely up to you. I see Django is currently just typing something, so I'll let them finish. No rush. Don't feel like you're against the clock now that I've called you out. But I have to, I'm incredibly excited with the direction that we are going to start swimming in as an ecosystem. Honestly, it's been really eye-opening looking around at all the other L1s that have launched in the last year. So many of them have, down 99% from their even listing price, and you go there, it's a ghost town, there's no one there. If they were to do a town hall like this, I would honestly be surprised if even a single person showed up. So it really is a testament to you guys, the community, and your dedication and your commitment to keep moving Voy forward, which is really going to keep Voy moving in the right direction and reaching new heights day after day, for sure. It's actually kind of crazy when you look at some of the other L1s and when you consider how much of the token supply they've given away to essentially just launch and then flop, is what it comes down to. I see Django has written something, so let's see. So pretty off topic, but ecosystem related. Any rumblings on a perp protocol? I love that. Feel like it would be a great way to get AVM folks to bridge over USDC. I realize legal barriers though. So it's funny you say that actually. A perpetuals market in general is something I would love to see. It really just comes down to having the developers able to implement this thing. We have had conversations with, actually we've had conversation with two different types of stable tokens. One, which is kind of like a hybrid algorithmic one, which would actually require a very strong perpetual market in place to be able to implement. But another one is actually just a typical kind of cash collateralized one. They're very interested in launching on Voy and bringing natively issued US dollar stable token and down the line pounds, Canadian dollars, Aussie dollars, New Zealand dollars, etc. So I'm very excited to see what does transpire on the stable side of things. But for the perpetuals, it's not something that we have in the works, but it's certainly something that I would really love to see, to be honest. And this would be I think it might actually already be on the bounty board as something that we want to see. But it is a matter of just getting the developers in, and there's only so much that our existing developers can do, but there is a huge opportunity in Voy for new developers to come in and start implementing a lot of this stuff. Brilliant. I saw PK was writing something. Oh, here we go. Sorry, Bill, you want to say something?
No, go ahead. You can read PKs and then I'll weigh in.
Awesome. So let's see. Introductory pitch deck of some sort would be helpful for business introductions. Have some physician colleagues that have MFM syndications with about $500 million in multifamily assets. Well, okay, that's pretty interesting. There you go. Already, this is exactly why we need a lot of these business development grants to come through. So it's a great point. Bagman is actually doing some great work on building out some end user profiles and end user personas and customer profiles for exactly this reason. So people know exactly who they should be targeting, how they should approach them. So it's not just, just kind of like a shot in the dark, which might miss, or it doesn't feel so much like a cold outreach. So I'd say hold tight. But that is definitely something that is already being worked on. And I think having some kind of templated introduction or kind of, what would be the right, I guess introductory kind of message would make a lot of sense. But that's really, really interesting. I think healthcare as a part of managed property is really interesting, and it's certainly something we could look at too.
Yeah, I was just going to add a little bit of context as to, from my perspective, how we got here. Because I really pride myself and our entire team on transparency and how we kind of do things. So I'm sure I recognize almost everybody in the audience, and most of you have been around for quite a while, and you've seen firsthand kind of the evolution of the Voy ecosystem. And it started out where we were very focused on cultivating node runners because you have to secure the network, and We ran a testnet environment to better understand kind of how to govern the ecosystem and get things off the ground from a community standpoint, as opposed to a centralized group that just decides everything. And throughout that process, we've tried to really kind of bang the drum about being a community blockchain, community driven, community built, all those sorts of things. And we've tried to, at different times, focus on some real world adoption, but it really didn't take during testnet. It was too risky for the end user. Didn't really have the formalities in place. Weren't able to point to a robust blockchain that was secure with no downtime, those sorts of things. And a lot of them really frankly don't care about the blockchain. They want their end use product to work. And so basically we've just taken our time last couple of years, almost 2 years at this point, and we feel really comfortable, we being the Block Authority team, feel very comfortable that, mission accomplished. We have a robust ecosystem that has a very reliable, predictable blockchain. It's secured well, it's decentralized. We have more than enough node runners to say that. And we've the token is issued. It's been done through non-US entities with independent control. We have now a Voy Council that is very community centric and approachable. And so at this point, it's time to start building on the network. And we started having discussions with the Voy Council and other people in the community about, well, in order for any blockchain to get off the ground successfully and have kind of a methodical but deliberate move forward, it really helps the developers and the end users to know what to build, what to use, how to use it. And in order to do that, you need to focus on some form of industry that the industry knows where to go and the developers know what to build for and what kind of tools. And so we started a dialogue as to different industries that would make some sense. And I personally believe that this one made a lot of sense, and because it's directly tied to development of communities in the real world. And a lot of you, I assume, live in apartments now or have in the past, and you have some familiarity from the end user's perspective. But the cultivation of those developments involves a variety of different segments in time. There's fundraising. I mean, these typical projects are $50 to $100 million projects. So there's fundraising, there's construction, procurement, then management and auditing. There's ultimately, municipal entitlements process. There's identifying public-private partnerships, tax increment financing. There's just lots and lots of data that's used. There's lots of commodities that are tracked, and every major city in at least the United States and throughout the world has a handful of developers that focus on this segment, whether it be student housing, medical housing, or just multifamily housing in the form of a apartment complex. And so when we looked at an ecosystem that has a lot of money that's in it already, but does not have a huge amount of technology focus, we thought that the people that we work with in this ecosystem are beyond qualified to build tooling that this specific industry would ultimately buy and use and appreciate the attention. And so we've worked on putting together a focus group of parties in that industry already, and we've welcomed community input. If there's people that have players in the industry that want to participate, by all means contact us. But to be candid, it took us less than a week to put together a broad-based, multi-geographical, different layers, different size, shapes of complexes to contribute their time. And you'll see a grant proposal to reward them with some Voy for it. But frankly, they don't even have a grasp of what the Voy's worth right now. They said, "Yeah, this sounds awesome," because this is something where a technology provider wants to help us, and they want to provide us with things that we'll actually use, and we can customize it to, like, as opposed to using tooling that's really for single family homes like a Zillow. We could have somebody develop directly for those that want to identify sites to develop these projects specifically for us. And so it was very easy to find a half a dozen people to say, let's do it. And so we're getting very good traction. But to be clear, and the purpose of the town hall is that if there's another industry that this community thinks makes more sense, by all means, let us know. We'll start the same fact gathering, prospecting of it. and move forward with it because this is supposed to be a community decision. But so far, so good. This has been very exciting, and everybody that's touched it has, as they've learned more about what this industry really means, they recognize how many people touch it, how many people invest in it, have learned more about what it even means to have, a real estate investment trust, what it means to have construction that focuses on multifamily development construction as opposed to single family home, and all those sorts of things. And you start to realize that there's trade associations that we could join. There are individuals at these larger companies that we can talk to that do, CTO type level stuff from their perspective. And they're very enthusiastic about any kind of technology provider coming to them and saying, yeah, we really think your industry is amazing and we want to build tooling for it, but we want to know what you need and what you want, what needs to be replaced, what needs to be created, and where's the data currently housed and how do we pull from it. And so it's been exciting. So I've just really enjoyed working on it so far. And if anybody in the community wants to discuss it further, you can contact me, Benny, Chris. Bagman's been doing a lot of work on it. Shanti's been working on it as well. And we're just starting to realizing that this really does have a very logical tie to what this blockchain and this community is all about.
Very well said. Yeah, I think it's a fantastic market to go after. It's just been crazy the amount of traction that we've gained in such a short amount of time. It's funny, I was actually on vacation for a couple of weeks, just road tripping, driving through the US, and it was actually turned out to be a little bit of market research in the end because I was just completely astounded by the amount of multi-family developments I was seeing, even in towns where there's only a few thousand people. So it really, honestly, very anecdotal, but very much feels like there is a trend that more and more people are going to be basically living in properties of this type. And it's a great time for us to start disrupting this industry, essentially. I think the preliminary conversations with people in the focus groups have been fantastic. One I know that's Canada-based was extremely interested in not only joining the focus group, but perhaps actually incorporating into their developments a very heavy crypto element, which could obviously extend beyond what we're originally thinking and start at least beyond the beachhead market we're considering and start serving the residents. They actually see it as a great differentiator in the market for their buildings. Perhaps having a crypto-centric floor of their apartment buildings where everything is crypto native, crypto-based, rent payments are in crypto. It was really interesting to see just how far they want to take it, and they're extremely excited. So I'm extremely bullish on not only Voy, but this particular market that we want to go after. But anyway, I would love to live on a crypto floor in an apartment building. But don't know about you guys. I think it'd be pretty interesting to see what they do.
I feel like it might stink.
Maybe they've got enhanced air freshener through the hallways on that floor. I'm not sure. Well, the HVAC is working overtime.
Maybe. But a
Brilliant.
bunch of high energy draw from all the servers running protected.
Maybe they have like a mining room or something, and I'm sure there'd be like a co-working space or something. But it's all very, very interesting to me, at least. But if anybody has anything they want to add, now is the perfect time. This is booked in for about an hour, so we do have 15 minutes if people want to. But we can always finish early if everybody has said everything they want to say. I like incentivized freshness. That's freshness. That's for sure. Maybe Freshnet should be a thing.
Just it's funny. Just wanted to pop up here and talk just a little bit about the industry itself. Just kind of echoing what was said earlier. I think there's a ton of opportunity, a ton of money, and a lot of problem statements. I've had some conversations, just initial conversations, to get some interest in participating in the focus group. And what Chris was saying earlier about, or maybe it was Gov actually, about folks in that industry itself being very open to having conversations about solving some of their extending problems and becoming more efficient is of high interest. I think there's a ton of problem statements, things around, data aggregation that could be an interesting solution, as well as, the piece on, real world asset management and what that means for these developers and how they can be more efficient in that asset management world is an interesting one. Going back to the data aggregation piece, there could be opportunities to help streamline efficiencies around approval processes for these types of large scale projects as well from a developer perspective. So I've heard, quite a few problem statements, and I think that there's quite a bit of opportunity. But as Benedict had mentioned, we won't really know what those problems are or what their, the total market that they will be addressing could potentially be until we have these focus groups. And then from there, we'll be able to, identify even further what are the top priorities for these folks and what might they want to potentially pay to have a solution built and delivered to them. So yeah, it's exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of comes from all of this, and I figured I'd just hop up and give my 2 cents.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Always great to see the council pop up and give their inputs. I don't know if there's anyone else on the council that has any thoughts, inputs, or ideas, or anyone else from the community. Brilliant. Well, I'll give it a few more seconds, but other than that, we can probably go into closing remarks and start wrapping this up, basically.
Now, just a quick question for you all too. From a kind of proposal perspective, from the council as well as the judicial branch there, when different folks are submitting their proposals, kind of moving forward, one of the key things that we'll be looking for is how does it potentially relate to some of these industry problems and being solved? Is that right? And that will go into some of our evaluation around those proposals. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I think there's kind of going to be two main different high-level categories there. That, we're still obviously going to want a lot of community, like ecosystem, internal development and tooling and projects, because that is still our foundational core, is actually serving you guys and giving you what you want. So there's definitely still room for people to be able to build out products that serve our own internal community. But at the same time, there's definitely going to be a lot of incentives that should go towards basically getting the platforms and the applications built. But perhaps more importantly right now is a lot of that critical infrastructure that's going to underpin them, because that will be forever there and unwavering. And that is the real core piece that at least ecosystem funding should go to. Platforms and applications at the top of the stack are positioned better to go after alternative sources of funding, such as VC funding or angel investment or whatever it might be, because typically they will want to keep some of the technology proprietary and non-open source. But it's the underlying core public and private infrastructure which will always be there, which would make sense for ecosystem funding. And of course, like I said, anything that the community is wanting to see when it comes to the applications that they want to use, right? So it's going to be, a little bit of a balancing act on which segments some of these products might fall into, but that's just going to be part of the process. But I'm excited to see what does come down the line. And I think one thing we didn't actually touch upon, which is another really, really great reason for us to be targeting this market, is not only does the customers within these segments have really deep pockets, they also have great inroads into investment, whether that be, other various funds. A lot of them are angels. I know actually the Canadian one I spoke to, the point of contact was saying the CEO is an agent, an angel into tech. And it could be quite common that what happens is when we pair up builders or when people start building solutions for these companies themselves, those companies might actually want to invest into the product and actually have some ownership over it and see the upside of it when they start selling to other players in the industry. It's something that actually happened to me previously when I was working at a hedge fund. Was we actually had a product which was served for our hedge fund and it actually got spun out and into its own thing, and obviously the hedge fund took some equity as a form of investment into it, but then started to actually serve other customers within the market. So I think that would be really interesting to see what happens there. But to answer your question, yeah, it depends on who the end customer is of those platforms and applications ultimately.
One of the things that the way that I see it is that Voy should be a follower supporter when it comes to industry focused things. Block Authority, the entity we're talking about, we're going to be the spearhead. We're going to be pushing in. We're going to figure out the opportunity. We're going to create an alliance with other projects building on top of Voy. And then when that traction picks up, that's when Voy will know that Voy is the actual official chain of multi-development properties. And so multifamily properties. And that's kind of the way that I actually see it, is that it should be there to support. It should be there to actually see what the community leads it, and then really bolster what we can do out in the real world.
Brilliant. Don't know if anyone has anything else they want to add. This isn't your only opportunity to obviously ask anyone any questions, but great time just to provide your thoughts and feedback if you have anything that you want to talk about. It doesn't need to pertain to the market focus or the vision. Whether you want to talk about something in the ecosystem, we do have a few more minutes. It could be talking about the roadmaps on the ecosystem side as well, maybe some of the events, maybe some of the new projects or new token launches. It's completely up to you. Now's just a great opportunity for you to ask any questions you might have.
I was just going to add, this isn't the last discussion about it. So if anyone in the audience starts to have thoughts and thinks about the market segment, and it takes the traction that we think it's taking and it's going to move forward, and you want to participate in some regard, or you have a connection you'd like to put together with those that are working on the initiative, by all means, get in touch with us, get in touch with the Voy Council or anyone from the Block Authority. And we wanted this to be a very collaborative effort and initiative. But to be clear, we also really want this to actually roll out in a deliberate fashion over the next couple of months. So the focus group's going to move forward. We're going to gather information from those in the industry to develop and cultivate what needs they actually have, and go from there. So by all means, get engaged. Let us know if you have connections. Let us know if you want to help, and we'll go from there.
Brilliant. And I think just some final updates. If we do go ahead with this focus, one thing I really want to see is a revamped website. I think it should be, at least the index page, the main homepage should be very much geared towards the industry that we want to serve, because the actual people who are going to be going to that website will be customers within that market. That being said, there will obviously be an ecosystem hub, which I know Examian has been working on, and that will contain everything that is more internal within the ecosystem and the community as a whole. Places you can go to find projects, what incentives are running right now, what the block rewards aspects might be. Anything that is to do with the internal community will also reside on its own ecosystem hub. But I'm excited to get these two websites kind of put away when we have things more locked in, because it's just, we need a new website fundamentally. Like the one we have right now is just a great little landing page, but now we've picked our potential initial focus. I think we obviously need to start framing and gearing everything around it. That will also mean communication and tone and messaging on social media will be updated, just to bring it more in line with the industry that we're going after. And just really cohesively as an ecosystem, communicating both internally and externally in a more focused way, if you will, towards the market that we want to go after. So I'm excited for those changes to be implemented too. But brilliant. Well, we can wrap it up and end it there. Final remarks, anybody else, or should we put this to bed for now and people can have can mull on it and let it digest? Brilliant. Right. Well, thank you for your time, everybody. And honestly,
Method likes it, so
yeah, I saw. Yeah, thank you, Method. So yeah, I mean, I was gonna say something. It's lost to me now, but it was something on the lines of "You guys are great," and honestly, like Voy wouldn't be where it is without everybody in this room. The council, especially, I know, put in a hell of a lot of work and effort, and that includes Scotty too. It's really kind of the gears that are moving to keep things going in Voy, in my eyes at least. So keep up the great work, and I'm really excited to see what we can collectively do going forward. Brilliant. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great day.
thank you.
Thanks, everyone.